In the opening scene, Merv Colt sneaks around the house as she goes around picking up her things in preparation to step out. She sneaks into a closet that belongs to her journalist mother, Nevra Coulter. She tiptoes towards the door so her mom doesn't find out that she has been going through her closet. As soon as her mother, who is watching TV, hears the door unlock, she calls out to Merv, who claims she needs to look good for her job interview. Nevra reminds her daughter that she had to call in a favor to get her that interview, and she intends to wear mismatched clothes there. Merv reveals her displeasure because she wanted to see the editor of the best fashion magazine in Turkey, in the person of Leyla Madrali, but instead, her mother sends her to a finance manager. She informs her mom that she wants to be a fashion designer, and she's not going to give up on that. Nevra yells at her daughter, who has a degree in business, but the young lady runs off with her folder, hoping she will somehow meet with Leyla, who will consider looking through her designs. As she gets to the bottom of the stairs, a neighbor-turned-family, named Samos, comes to wish her luck and give her a bunch of sage, which is supposed to help her. Merv runs off without collecting the sage. When she gets to the door, she meets Gulgun, another neighbor who's like an aunt to her. Gulgun feeds her some food. Merv hurries out of the house. A car drives by and stops at a distance. A man inside the vehicle takes a look at the environment, and he gets flashes of an event that took place in the past. Merv stops at the shop of her neighbor, Hamdi. She complains about her mom's desire for her to work at an office instead of being a fashion designer. Hamdi informs her that Nevra only wants the best for her, which is that she wants her daughter to be independent and make some good money. Meanwhile, in the vehicle, the man decides to evict the residents of a particular building, and he tells his lawyer to carry on with his desire. Merv attends her interview, and she does everything in her power to frustrate the interviewers. Since she's not interested in working in an office, she's determined not to give them the answers they want. Minutes later, she walks down to the elevator, screaming that she is never going to stifle her creative soul, no matter the amount of money being offered to her. Merv stands by the door, being all dramatic about the issue before finally stepping inside, without even looking at the people in the elevator. A lady asks her some questions, and she replies to the lady's question without looking back until she hears the woman's assistant call her Leyla. The woman turns out to be Leyla Madrali, the editor of the best fashion magazine in Turkey, whom she had always wanted to meet. Before her eyes, Leyla walks past her and exits the elevator. She only realizes it when it's too late. Merv quickly brings out the sage Samos forced into her bag and begins to inhale it. She continues on her way home, admiring a few pieces of clothing materials in a boutique. She stops at a cafe and places her call to her boyfriend Erdem as she sips from her cup. She follows the sound of a ringing phone and finds Erdem kissing someone else. She starts complaining about him cheating on her, but he gets up and reveals that he is cheating on that lady with her. He begs her to come with him and pretend to be his sister or cousin, so his girlfriend doesn't suspect anything. Merv is pissed. She imagines the dangerous things she could have done to him. However, she restrains herself and walks away to a place she usually goes to feel better. She returns home to find everyone in the living room wearing somber faces. She asks that they tell her why the strange look on their faces, but everyone keeps mum. Nevra breaks the silence and informs her that her father sold the building in which they are living because he's broke and owes the bank a ton of money. She breaks it down to her daughter that they have just 2 months to evacuate the building. Merv tries to understand what is happening because her father abandoned them 15 years ago. She realizes that her parents are not yet divorced, and the name on the ownership papers didn't change to her mother's or her name. She is unhappy with her mother and imagines her expressing her displeasure with a little violence, but she can't do such to her mother. Nevra informs her that she'll have to get off her ass and find a job. The whole thing is unbelievable to Merv, and it's beginning to drive her crazy. So she runs off in search of her friend Nil. On arriving at Nil's residence, she meets no one and the whole place is dark. A bear suddenly appears and scares her off. Merv runs through the doorpost and gets electrocuted. She falls to the ground and her friend comes running to rescue her. Nil reveals that she came up just in time for the testing of the new security system the guys developed. Merv lashes out at them for make her day worse. Later, they all gather to have a discussion and Merv shares with them her latest challenge. She can't bear seeing her family lives elsewhere, and now she's faced with the burden of buying the building back, even though she doesn't know how to go about it. Nil reveals that she simply needs ideas on what app to create. If it's successful, and she could sell just one app, then she'd have the money to buy the entire neighborhood back, and not just a building. Nil comes up with the idea of creating a dating app. They discuss it a little and Merv comes up with an even more fantastic idea to create a dating app where everyone wears a mask. She believes her idea will promote honesty among people looking for soulmates. Nil buys the idea of creating something for only people in search of a soulmate. After much deliberation, they all come to an agreement, and the tasks get shared among them. After their short meeting, Nil and Merv take a walk, while Merv complains about her situation and the role her father played in it. Her friend wonders if Layla was able to see Merv's portfolio. The girls spend the time discussing Merv's designs as they head home for the night. The following day, Merv hurries up to the venue for another interview. She's informed that she will be judged based on the number of likes she has in the course of the interview, which will be recorded. At the end of the interview, Merv's likes drop to 0, hence, she gets disqualified. In her bid to get a job to save her family, she meets with the owner of a fashion line who employs her. She excitedly calls Nil to inform her of the new development. Her friends reveal that she has managed to get them a meeting with Anil Gurman, who is a big startup guru and one of the biggest investors in the market. Nil gives her friend the breakdown of the kind of person Anil is and all he stands for. Anil arrives at his office and takes his seat to go through the idea that will be pitched to him during his meeting. He's surprised that Merv is responsible for the app. Nevertheless, he requests that his assistant fix the meeting for the next morning. The next day, Merv gets all dressed up in her mother's attire. She informed her mother that she'd be meeting with a big investor to pitch her and her friend's idea. Never listens to her daughter, but she has a problem with her dress sense. The young lady insists it's her style, so she can dress however she desires. Merv stops by her favorite spot to chill out a little when she notices the girl taking a picture of herself. She decides to give it a try and upload it on Instagram, and then see how far it goes. The lady who takes the snapshots compliments Merv's style as she hands back her phone. Merv arrives at the cafe. She takes her cup of coffee to go have her seat, unknown to her that someone is behind her. She accidentally bumps into him and spills the hot coffee on her pants. Meanwhile, Anil smiles to himself as he watches her berate him for not apologizing. She walks into the restroom to clean up, but an idea hits her to try something else. Merv pours more coffee on her pants and turns the accident into a style. Afterward, she steps out to find Anil waiting for her. He commends her fashion sense for camouflaging the stain. She imagines herself strangling this rude stranger standing before her. However, she doesn't intend to arrive at her meeting late. She compliments his button and walks away immediately. The group of 6 friends walks into the office with Murat wearing his bear mask. On getting to Anil's office, he welcomes them, even though Merv looks shocked to find out he is the guy who provoked her at the cafe. Nil introduces Murat, who is serving as the art director, the coders Fikret and Ali, and Merv, who is the founder of the app, and also the group's creative genius. Merv apologizes for her behavior earlier, but Anil ignores her and asks that they start already. Now she thinks the stars might be screwing with her. At the end of their presentation, Anil gives them a round of applause and asks them to come up with a beta version of the app, and he will cover the finances. He also mentions that he will hold on to 50% of the shares and cover their expenses. Furthermore, they will have to use his company's server infrastructure. Immediately, he steps out and the group embraces each other in excitement. Although it's still surprising that he accepts their proposal without them stressing to convince him. On their way out, Anil calls Merv and requests to know if she would find it interesting to work with his company, as their ready-to-wear division might need some new intakes. She loves the offer so much that she starts talking more than necessary. Nil drags her away, seeing that she has gotten the offer. As he walks away with his team, Anil confesses that the presentation was absolute garbage. His team member, Seza, questions why he wanted to sponsor them when he knows that it's all garbage. To her surprise, Anil confesses that he wants her to make Merv her little servant, and he'd want to see her run out of their office crying. Anil gets back to his house after the close of work. He sips a bottle of juice and stares at the photos of Coulter and the businessman Gurman, which he pinned to a board. At Merv's home, she excitedly informs everyone about the progress she made and her new job offer. They are excited for her. Nil compliments Aunt Gulgun's culinary skills and offers to help her market the business so she can start up a cooking business. After the dinner, Nil and Merv are enjoying same as his company when Nevra walks by and hears about Gurman's name. She pretends it's nothing and walks away. Over at Anil's apartment, he is still facing the wall and thinking back to when he was a young boy. He gets notified of someone's presence outside his door. He moves over and opens their door to usher one of his women into the house. The next morning, Nevra runs into Merv's room to turn off her alarm sound, which is disturbing everyone while she's enjoying her sleep. She struggles as she wakes her up so she can prepare for work. Merv steps into the office to win over their hearts with her skills. Since she arrives late, Seza promises to discipline her the next time it occurs. She shows her the desk where she will be sitting and then assigns a task to her. Merv feels her tasks are quite too much, considering it is her first day. But Zainab, the lady standing with Seza, whispers a word of advice to her and asks her to be careful with what she says, since someone is always listening. Zainab threatens her, asking her not to feel too comfortable, since she has as much power as Seza. Merv begins her work immediately, and she spends the next 3 days doing the same assignment because Seza calls her work garbage and asks her to redo it, while Anil enjoys the show via the camera. After the close of work, Merv meets with her friends to check out the progress on the work done, and to her greatest surprise, they are already receiving orders. Murat shows her a mask he just finished working on, based on an order from a client. He goes on to amaze her by showing the one she requested. Merv is overjoyed. Murat is gradually getting used to Nil, never having any time to pay attention to the little things he does, but Merv urges him not to give up on her. She calls on everybody to put on their masks so they can dance to some music. The next day, Merv stops at Hamdi's store, and she finds Samas there even though Hamdi is not too excited about having him around. Merv shares that she feels like she was hired so they can make her life hell. However, she's glad that the job is temporary. They soon start talking about the sales of the building, and Samas suggests Merv talk to her father to find out who the buyer is. She isn't comfortable with his suggestion, so she quickly runs out claiming to be late for work. She gets outside and listens to the rest of their conversation from the door. She arrives at work, and the situation at work remains as though everyone is out to frustrate her. She continues doing her job and taking pictures of herself, which she later posts online with her "You Do You" hashtag. Anil has been following her, and he isn't too pleased. He calls Seza into his office, demanding for some changes to be made. The next information Merv receives is that she is transferred to the main warehouse to do the inventory, and she will no longer be working at the ready-to-wear section. She resumes duty in her new department, and on her very first day, her mood is tampered with, but she chooses to take Samas' advice and turn everything into a game. Merv does her work and continues taking pictures for her Instagram page like nothing ever happened. Anil isn't satisfied that she still has time to take these photos, and her frustration is not evident. However, he doesn't intend to fire her yet. After work for the day, Merv considers Samas' advice and decides to see her father to find out who the land is being sold to. As he rolls the baby trolley on the road, Mr. Coulter tries to dissuade his daughter from finding out who the new buyer is. He explains that things changed for him ever since he had his son. Besides, she's much older now, so she can succeed on her own. As Merv listens to him preach to her that she needs to endure the difficult phase in her life, she gets irritated, and all she imagines is strangling this old man, who aims to take away her haven, the only place she calls home. She yells at him, reminding him how he left her when she was a young child, and now he has left her broke, desperate, and completely. Merv arrives home much later and finds her mom packing their things. Never informs her that they are broke. Their power supply will soon be turned off, and they can't pay the bill. She assures her mother that they won't leave the house. She shows her the money she had gotten from her father, but she lies that she got the money from work as advance pay. Nevra instantly smells the lies and knows the money must have come from Coulter. The mother and daughter get into a not-so-pleasant argument after Nevra rebukes Merv for collecting money from her father. Merv blames her pride for getting in the way of her enjoying paternal love. The next day, Merv is already getting used to waking up early without help from her mother. She jumps off her bed immediately after the alarm rings and prepares for the day's work. She goes on with her day's routine, and she spares some time to take pictures for Instagram. She makes a new friend who helps her to take pictures, and the both of them squeal in excitement seeing how she looks in the photos. At the close of work, Merv meets with her friends, and together they enjoy fun moments cycling all around town and pasting flyers of their app's meetup party on random walls where they can get some attention. Merv shows Anil the reports from the research that was assigned to her, but he disposes it off in his trash can. She feels horrible, so she decides to chat Nil up, asking how much longer she has to put up with her place of work. Anil questions why she's on her phone, and she smartly changes the topic and focuses on his suit until he walks away on his own accord. At his home, Anil tries to meditate, but flashes of Merv somehow keep running through his mind. He has received the order for a mask which he had made. He decides to hook up with Merv on the Soulmate app. He finds a way to change the sound of his voice, so she doesn't get to find out his real identity. Merv receives the notification for a video chat with the old guy. She quickly grabs her gazelle mask and wears it. She engages him in a conversation, teasing him with their predator and prey relationship. They get talking about their life goals, and Anil reveals his is to avenge his family. Unknown to Merv, she's guessing right on how his family of wolves gets exterminated by the hunter. He abruptly disconnects the call. She assumes he must have disconnected because the conversation might have been a bit too honest for him. The following day, Merv steps out for work. A young lady calls her back to acknowledge her work on the media and how her pairing has helped her create a style for herself. Merv encourages her to continue doing what she wants and continues on her way. She checks her page, and she's shocked to see that she has 60K followers already. Anil decides to listen to Merv and try out her neighbor. He pays a visit to Hamid's shop to request that a sports jacket be sewn for him with his material. After a few conversations with Hamid, he assures him to leave the material to be used for the sports jacket to him. Hamid takes his measurements and appreciates whoever recommended him to try out his work. It's evening and Merv is still at work. Anil watches from the camera as she munches on some snack while working, and the scenario looks cute to him. He doesn't even know when he chuckles. He puts a call through to her via the Soulmate app. Merv takes the call and turns her camera to see the picture of a gazelle on her computer's screen since she's not with her mask. She innocently shares her ideas for the company, unbeknownst to her that she's dealing with Anil. He advises her to pitch her ideas to her boss. After all, she'll never know what he'll think about it. She thanks him for his advice and informs him that she needs to go as her boss might be watching. After the call, Anil smiles to himself, but the smile on his face soon disappears as he rests his eyes on his family's picture. The next day at work, Merv pitches her ideas to Seza, and it turns out that Seza steals her ideas, pitching them to Anil like it's hers. She feels pissed, but she applauds Seza when asked to share what she thinks. Later, she chats with her wolf guy on Soulmate, and she explains all that transpired after telling Seza her ideas. The duo stays up talking for quite a long time until Anil ends the call. Nevra notices that her daughter has been on her phone quite a lot lately. She eavesdrops on the conversation without drawing Merv's attention. The following day, Anil comes to fit his sports jacket at Hamdi's store, and he's quite impressed with how it fits him so well. Nevra sees him taking his leave from Hamdi's store a while later. She has seen him watching their street for some time now. Immediately after he leaves, she runs to confront Hamdi, who reveals that he is Anil Burman. Nevra feels it's too much of a coincidence. However, she requests him to keep it away from Merv. Merv visits Hamdi's store, and she admires the new piece he had just made. Her eyes spot the button, and she knows for certain that her boss uses the same buttons. She smiles to herself, seeing that he took her advice to try out Hamdi's designs. The Soulmate mask party arrives, and the turnout is quite impressive. The people dance enthusiastically to the song blasting through the stereos. Merv finds Anil in the party. She takes off her mask, believing that he will do the same, but he turns around and disappears through the crowd. She takes a seat, and Nil soon chats her up, requesting she come meet Anil at the bar. On getting there, Nil informs her that Anil, who is without a mask, brought his investor friends from China to the party. She offers to show the three men around after they take off their masks. When the party begins to quell down, Merv and Murat sit out talking about the freeloaders who made their masks instead of buying from them. Murat reveals that he's getting desperate with Nil. Merv shares the advice the wolf guy gave her. She tells him to make a move, as there is always someone else willing to take what belongs to him. Later that night, Merv waits to receive a message or call from the wolf guy, but she gets nothing because he's offline. She lies on her bed restlessly, while Anil restrains himself from reaching out to her as well. In the early hours of the morning, Murat summons the courage to profess his love to Nil. She admits that she's aware, but then she thinks there is no time for them to love up, because the success of the app is currently the priority. She kisses his cheek and makes her way into her house. Before she leaves for work, Merv receives some visitors who mistake her for Nevra. They inform her that they will have to vacate the building in less than 30 days and pay up their dues. Otherwise, an order will be filed against them in court. After the man leaves, Golgan expresses her worries to Seamus, as she doesn't even have the financial means to start getting an apartment. Merv joins them and assures Golgan that no one is leaving, especially now that the Chinese investors have promised to buy the app. Seamus focuses on his card readings, and he has decided to hold on to the readings he is getting, one saying that all will be good. After Merv leaves for work, Seamus gets new readings from his card as he picks a dragon and wolf card. He senses betrayal, and that's a bad omen. At work, Anil informs his team members that Layla has accepted their offer, and she will be the head judge for their panel. While Layla is addressing them, Merv reveals she'd like to join the competition. She catches Layla's attention, and the lady feels her face is familiar. Zainab reveals that Merv is an Instagrammer and Layla confesses that everyone loves her at the magazine. She informs Anil that he's lucky to have a talented person like Merv, and with that, Layla permits Merv to participate in the contest. Merv squeals thank you to Anil amid excitement. After the meeting, Seza attacks Merv for undermining her in front of Anil. She reveals that Merv will be working overtime straight until morning. That way she won't have time to prepare for the contest. A few days back, Never finds some letters in a closet, so she decides to visit her husband. She meets up with Coulter and asks who he sold their house to. Coulter admits that he does not know who he sold the house to. He explains the circumstances that led to him selling to a lawyer who continues raising the price of the house. He remembers Sedat Gurman, who had sold the building to him, so he could pay off all his debts, and now he has to sell to pay off all his debts. Nevra informs him that she has decided to divorce him. After the meeting with her husband, Nevra meets with Anil's lawyer since she knows him. She requests he help her with her divorce so she can get back what is owed to her. The lawyer turns her down because it's unethical, and he does not want to betray Anil. Merv spends the night working thanks to Seza. She spots Anil coming to make some coffee. She hides to watch him, and then suddenly decides to reenact their first encounter. After spilling his coffee, the generator goes off. She suspects that he's the face behind the wolf mask, so she intends to raise the topic. She realizes that her hunch is right and Anil is hot and cold, just like the wolf guy. He sees her off to get a cab, while shielding her from the rain with his umbrella. All through their movement down to where the cab is parked, Anil falls under her spell, and his burning desires can be seen in his eyes. They end up kissing before she gets into the cab, unknown to them that Nevra is somewhere in the rain watching. After her daughter leaves, Nevra confronts Anil in the parking lot. She tries to clarify that his father isn't a saint, as he was involved in illegal dealings, and as a journalist, she had to do her job. He accuses her of seducing his father, so she brings out proof of the love letters he had sent to her, as well as every other proof his father was into shady deals. She warns him to stay away from her daughter, and quit thinking he'll destroy their lives by demolishing the building. She angrily takes her leave, while he stands there battling his emotions. That same night, Merv receives a text from Anil asking her to meet him. She excitedly gets up to go meet with the wolf again. Minutes later, they meet at her favorite place, and he discovers that she has already figured him out. Anil kisses her for some minutes before pulling away and suddenly taking his leave. He apologizes to her and confesses that when she finds out the truth about him, she's never going to forgive him. The next day, Merv gets fired, and she packs her things to meet with her friends. Nil tells her that Anil made their app into a paid subscription, and now everything is gone. Merv heads out and finds her way back home, only to meet her mother looking downcast. Nevra reveals everything concerning the Gurmans to her daughter. Merv feels heartbroken and hurt, and she sulks all through the night while Gulgun and Nevra try all they can to comfort her. The next morning, she wakes her daughter up and drags her out of the bed to her room. She reminds her that she's the star of her own life, and she's got tons of followers on Instagram who love her. She packs her clothes from her closet and hands them over to her, telling her to do whatever she likes, but she must ensure that she wins the competition. The mother and daughter decide to get out of the building and create a new life for themselves. Merv begins work immediately as she spends some days with Hamid redesigning and creating something new from her mother's outfits. The event arrives and each candidate displays their style one after the other. Merv's style stands out amongst the crowds, and even Nevra rocks her daughter's style as she walks forth and back on the stage. Gulgun and Seymaz add glitz and glamour to the event, as they also come out to showcase their girls' work. After the event, the entire family and Nil gather at Nevra's home to celebrate their new rising fashion star who just got certified. She informs them that Anil was nowhere to be found during the event. However, she cares less if he goes to the end of the earth. Meanwhile, Anil decides to seek peace with his Mandarin master in the mountains. He realizes that he lost the woman he loves because he was busy chasing a lie. His master advises him to go find Merv and make amends with her before it's too late. Nil and Murat finally agree to start their relationship. Nil proposes marriage, and he accepts. At the Coulter's residence, everyone is packing out their properties and Anil's lawyer comes bearing news. He informs them that there has been a change of plans, and they will no longer need to move out. Everyone is filled with joy, and they return their properties inside. Murat and Nil get married a few days later, and Anil shows up requesting to speak with Merv. Murat plans to get back at him, so he asks him to wait by their studio. Anil arrives there and Murat plays his bear prank on him, and he gets scared and runs out. In the process, he gets electrocuted at the doorpost where Murat had installed the security system. Everyone gets drawn by the sound of the bear's roar. To their surprise, they find Anil in a state of shock. With the help of Merv, he regains consciousness, and the first thing he does is apologize for letting his hatred for her family drive him into attempting to ruin their lives. He confesses how he feels about her, and how her entrance into his life has confused his plans. She tells him to give her time to think over it. Subsequently, her style becomes a big thing in Istanbul, and she's making quite a headline for herself. She and her family reconcile with Anil. He is finally given a second chance to love her.